Paltrocast.
Nigel, aside from speaking to fake news media, how is your day going so far?
It's doing fine, thank you. Yeah, it's a Friday. It's a sunny Friday in Sussex where I live, so yeah, can't go wrong really.
I think this is one of the only days in history where it's raining in New York and not in Sussex.
Yeah, that could be. Do you know what? We're waiting for Hurricane Nigel. Apparently, Hurricane Nigel, which I'm quite pleased about. I've never been called after a hurricane before, so we're waiting for that to arrive, and then the rain will really start.
Are the hurricanes in England only named after Doctor Who actors?
No, but I think they should be. You've done your research, obviously, but yeah, they should be, shouldn't they? That's a good call. I don't know how they name hurricanes. They must just run out of names after a while. Because you know, there's very few Nigels left in the world.
I think you're probably my fourth Nigel interview over the years.
Okay,
But
that's not too bad.
usually they're not 12 years old or 22 years old if they're named Nigel. That's the reality.
Yeah.
But
Well, no one in the UK was named Nigel over the last couple of years, which I'm not surprised. I don't even like the name. It's a terrible name. Oh, I want to be like a butch name, like Bill, or you know.
I disagree. Nigel is a cool name, and I think that Spinal Tap changed like the qualifications of the Nigel out there, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here today is And Then Come the Nightjars, which for us is a new movie because it's not out till next week. For you, it's an old movie, but when did you actually film it?
We filmed it in September 2021, so 2 years ago, just towards the end of the lockdown in this country. And that was one of the reasons it got made, because Amy of Finite Films, who raised the finance, was looking for a project that could be done under those kind of the protocols for COVID were just being raised, but she wanted a story with a small cast, a restricted location that could be shot quite quickly with a small crew. So that's why we got it then. And also because the farm where we filmed was September's a very quiet time for them, because all the cows are up on the moors grazing. So it meant we could have free reign, well, as much free reign as we could as possible on the farm, you know.
Now, it was adapted from an award-winning stage play. How familiar were you with the stage play before being cast in the film?
Well, very familiar. I mean, that was kind of part of its history. So myself and David Fielder, with the two main actors, we'd been in the stage play already. And so we knew the characters, and that was part of the pitch to the financiers, that it could be done very quickly, because the main concern was the shots, how we were going to shoot it. Paul had directed it already. So in terms of the working on the characters and the lines and everything, we were there. So we could move very, very swiftly, which was a huge advantage given the circumstances.
Now, part of my not knowing that, where was the production? Was it a typical West End?
No, it was. So the original play won the Theatre 503 International Playwriting Award, the inaugural one. So there was, I don't know how many, we'll have to ask Paul that because he actually ran it, but there was a lot of submissions from across the world. The play won that. So it was put on at Theatre 503, which is a kind of smallish, kind of off West End theatre. But it was a co-production with Bristol Old Vic, which is a much bigger regional theatre, and it was a huge success. And then so performed at Bristol, then was taken on tour because of the success. The reviews were amazing, etc. And then the following year went on tour again. And then, as I say, when a couple of years later, was made into a film.
The reason that I'm surprised, due to my lack of research and preparation, the reason I'm surprised to hear that you were in the theatrical award-winning production right there is because of how great you are on camera in television and film productions. And theater is a different skill set. When I was growing up, you were either a Broadway person or a film and TV person. Now everyone can do everything, but Broadway and theater is a lot more using the hands, playing to the back of the room.
Yes.
Get it done in one take. And film and television, you do as many as the takes as the director or the lead is okay with. So that's why I'm very surprised to hear that on that end. When you started out, did you want to specifically do theater?
Yeah, I think that's quite a British thing as well. This is very entrenched here. I went to drama school, I went to Lambda, where it's kind of the training. I think we had a week of film and TV training in the 3 years, so it's very much in the tradition. Um, but obviously everything's changed over the years. I started a long, long time ago. I did my first proper job in 1987, which was a stage job. Funnily enough, and I then went on to do a film. But I don't know. I'm not sure what it's like in America. I know a lot of friends of mine have gone, and they're based in LA now, and they only ever do screen work.
Yeah.
Here, it's much more possible to do both. Although post-COVID, the theatre has shut down a lot. It does seem to be reviving a bit now, but most of the work I've done in the last 2 years has been on film and TV. I guess maybe I've been lucky. I've been able to do both. I've had the opportunity to do both. I hope. I mean, it was a big thing that both David, my fellow actor, and myself talked about a lot with Paul during the filming and just before it, to try and shrink those performances and make sure they weren't theatrical, having done it for so long. But I mean, I think, yeah, it's kind of, it was very freeing to be able to do that, to actually just be able to concentrate on each other rather than worrying about whether the audience can hear, or having that kind of, that nice thing in the theatre that you have a reaction. It was very funny. The script is surprisingly funny, and so on stage you have different reactions each night, so you can tune into that. We just kind of concentrated on working with each other, I suppose, and trying to convince each other that we were being truthful. But we did say quite a lot. We did say, was that too much? Were we too theatrical?
When you say, and sorry to cut you off here, when you say I'm not sure what it's like with New York actors in theater, a New York theater person when you meet them. There is a lot.
Really?
There's a lot of fake smiling. There's a lot of pretending to like tea more than you actually do, and talking about protecting your voice. There's a lot of, oh, I'm doing vocal warm downs. There's a lot more of that. And I don't think I've ever met an actor for film or television that talks about taking care of their voice, if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. How funny. Is that the tea thing? But we all, like in UK theatre, we all drink tea all the time. In fact, we have I think Equity, the stage union, has official tea breaks scheduled into rehearsals.
Well, I get that. I mean, coffee is our tea equivalent, you could argue, but there's a lot more of an Anglophile aspect towards theater people. I find, and
Right.
people hate me for saying that kind of thing, but there's a lot more of, I was taking the tube. I'm sorry, the subway. There's a lot more of that. I was in the elevator, that where they throw in the British vernacular, and that's where you go, oh, theater person.
I bet there's a lot of English actors who find themselves in LA and then come back here and start saying the opposite and being more LA-ified, if you like.
Well,
I bet there is.
Have you spent a lot of time in LA? And the reason I have to ask that is because okay. Well, you find that a lot of films that take place in LA these days are not filmed in LA. They're in Louisiana, North Carolina, the states that give you the tax credits.
Yeah. No, exactly. I've done quite a few American projects, but I've never actually even been to LA. I mean, now you don't need to go there. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so much is done over Zooms and you do tapes and stuff. But the last big American project I did was something called Kung Fury, which is still to be released. I think they're in dispute with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Is that the same Kung Fury that was the short film Helm by
There was a short film originally.
You don't understand how many times we've watched that Kung Fury short in this household. The Hasselhoff theme song, the Lonely Island people did it. So it's still in dispute, you're saying?
Yeah, I think so, because it was meant to be. I mean, we filmed it a while ago, but that was filmed in Germany and Bulgaria. So, and there's a lot of Netflix stuff here. Because the studios here are doing really well. I think I've done quite a few American projects. I've been to New York, of course, because everyone's been to New York, but no, never been to LA.
Okay, so working you into the conversation, how did you first connect with Nigel?
So, unbeknownst to me, Nigel had read the play before it got submitted, as I'm sure he's probably mentioned, and had asked me if the play ever went on, whether he could be in it, which is quite a cheeky ask, it has to be said. So I felt obliged to see him as part of the auditions, the truth. Very lucky, that I did, because he was absolutely spectacular. Obviously knew the material quite well already, saw himself in the part, as did I. So, it was a lovely coming together of things. And in fact, David Fielder was the same. David, I approached through his agent. He managed to get hold of my number and rang me up, and he said, my agent doesn't know I'm calling you. And I've been told to play it cool, but I'm desperate to do it, and please give it to me. So I think, rather than, I'd love to think that was about working with me, but I don't think either of them knew me at the time. The material was just so strong. And I think we all just responded to it incredibly positively, didn't we?
Well, Nigel,
you're absolutely right.
Aside from what you just heard, had you been familiar with Paul, that you'd seen him once at a casting thing, or you'd seen his work or an interview or anything like that before?
No, I don't. I think he kept me at an arm's length as much as possible. No, I'm joking. No, not at all. We'd never come across each other, which is quite unusual, because the UK, especially with new writing, the UK scene is quite small. But it's just one of those things. But it was a happy coincidence that I did know David already. I'd worked with David already. So yeah. So
Nigel had done quite a lot of telly, so we got audiences because of that as well. He's quite sort of known as a telly face over here.
A telly face. You say telly, but I mean, if we go through Nigel's credits, Four Wings and a Funeral, Doctor Who, sometimes it's film, sometimes it's television, etc. So that's a man with a lot of credits. Do you remember the first film? Do you remember the first film that you saw Nigel in, or television show?
No, it was probably Four Weddings, though, I think. For me, I don't know whether you've done more telly or the parts have been bigger, Nigel, but that's sort of, I see you as a fairly big TV person,
The compliments are going towards you, Nigel. Will you?
Yeah, 100%. Just keep them coming. No, I don't know. I'd kind of do what comes along, basically. If something's decent and it's a good script, I'll give it a go. I mean, sometimes it's like, so I did a movie with Sam Neill in Argentina. And that was like a no-brainer. I mean, the script could have been anything. It said, "Do you want to fly to Argentina and work with Sam Neill?" It's kind of like, yeah, I'll do anything. And then other times it's more more arty, I suppose, and you consider it more. But I think we're lucky in this country in that you can cross over between screen and stage much more easily than some other countries. So
right.
Not all actors, particularly older male actors, I find, are as hardworking or return to theatre quite as much. I think there are a category of male actors who would just be happy with a couple of tellies every year, and Nigel's not like that. He does everything, but he's a real theatre animal. He I always say makes it hard for himself in the way theatre actors do. Nigel's been up to Scarborough to do a tour. He, toured in Scotland, a few years ago. Like, he'll do those gigs because he just loves doing theatre. Done quite a lot of political theatre as well, which people may tend to steer clear of. It's a bit harder the better for Nigel. So, yeah, he sort of, it attracts him. Something quite hard in theatre will attract Nigel, whereas others it would put off.
As the XTC song goes, they're always making plans for Nigel. Paul, follow up, as I asked Nigel before you got on the call, the movie was elmed about 2 years ago or so. Are you allowed to say what's coming next for you? Are we allowed to know, or do strikes and embargoes prevent all that?
I wish that was the case. I have no idea, because I have no idea. I did speak to Nigel quite passionately about making something up in my neck of the woods, which is North Yorkshire, only because the connections I've sort of formed over the last 7 years up here mean that you know the landscape really well. There's some beautiful countryside up here, and the networks are so small that, you know, if you ask people, they'll let you film stuff in a heartbeat. And as we know, half of it's money, half of it's red tape. And as long as we can get something together, I wish we would. I think the truth is, stories like and Then Come the Nightjars just don't come along every day, and we set the bar quite high. I think, I don't mind saying that. And whilst both of us would, I hope I'm right in saying we'd love to work with each other again, you know, it just can't be anything. So my feeling is a little bit like, if we don't find something soon, I think I'll sit down with Nigel and we'll maybe commission something. Because I run a theatre up here, so maybe it could be something that starts up here as a piece of theatre and we turn into a film, or maybe we just commission the film. Because you can't wait around forever for the right script to come along either. If you have a sense of the subject, you know, I think maybe we'll get someone to write it.
Nigel, is that your understanding as well, or you just put on the spot about working with Paul again?
No, that's what we wanted. I mean, I think we put a very good team together, and a brilliant cinematographer called John Crane. We deliberately had a very small crew. We kind of based it on the Chloe Zhao approach, where, you know, from The Rider especially, and of course Nomadland, that they keep it very fleet of foot, and they you know, so they can move very quickly. And we needed to do that when we were shooting, because on Dartmoor, where we were, there's like 4 different weathers in the day. So we had to be very flexible about changing the schedule and stuff. And so having, you know, a small cast and a very kind of very dedicated crew meant we could do that. And that, I really like that way of working, and Paul does as well, I think, don't you, Paul? Yeah. And so, and also I particularly want to stay rural. I don't think many films are made in this country. Most sort of independent films tend to be urban, city-based. And so, and both of us, Paul and I, and David, actually have done quite a lot of going to the screenings in various places. And everyone has said in the audiences, we have these Q&As afterwards, everyone says it's so nice to see a rural film rather than it being yet another kind of you know, city-based story. So I also think the opportunities with that in terms of cinematography are much greater than cityscapes. And that goes back to the Chloe Zhao approach as well. You know, like things like The Rider, I think, were just beautiful. And of course, Nomadland was just extraordinary, the way and what we tried to. This is Paul more than me, so he probably should talk about it. But the idea that the Dartmoor countryside should be the third main character was very strong in our approach, wasn't it, Paul?
Yeah, the countryside and the cows was something we weren't able to achieve with the play. And I think these landscapes are so powerful because it's the connection with humans of their landscape, isn't it? It's the kind of geopsychology of it, or psychogeography of it, depending on which way you look at it. And that's thousands of years old. And, you know, that I think really, really moves people. And I think tonight's point, there's, you know, 40% of the country for whom stories aren't, you know, feeling relevant. And I think to try and tap into that again is really important, because I think it's not just in the UK that there's this disconnect between town and country. It's
universal.
Universal, and it's also becoming wider. And I think that's quite interesting in the age of sort of populism, and parts of our country, parts of America, starting to be monopolized by particular parties, particular ways of thinking, and wanting to polarize that thinking more. So that's of huge interest to me. Living somewhere semi-rural and having grown up in kind of rural Kent, having lived in London for a number of years, you see both sides. So yeah, I think there's something there to tap into in the future.
Well,
I also think there's a kind of in this sort of era of concern about, or not enough concern, but some concern about climate change, the timelessness of the countryside immediately, without even having to state anything, immediately gives some resonance to how we live in the world and how we treat the countryside, you know.
I can't disagree with that one. I live in a beach town, and luckily it's 45 minutes outside of Manhattan, so you get to have that nature feel to it. Yet, if you really did need the London, New York kind of stuff, just get on the train and then get out of there. But I've one last question for both of you, and it has nothing to do with how great And Then Come the Nightjars are, nothing to do with the further projects and all that. And that is, now you mentioned Yorkshire, however you want to say that, roots there, Paul. Some of my favorite bands in the world are from that region. A lot of my favorite bands are from that region. In fact, I listen to New Order probably 5 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
What's the last concert that you went to for fun?
Oh, that's a good question. I went to the reunion of the Stone Roses. Are you a fan of them?
I am. Now, have you seen any of these Ian Brown karaoke concerts that he's been doing?
I have. Not the best, and I'm not the hugest fan, I have to say. That was I think that's to be put under unfortunate for
musical crime against humanity, I would call it.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite bands, and I got to see them in Manchester. So yeah, it felt like a kind of coming home gig. It didn't last for long. Although I'm thinking about it, it's quite a while ago now, so I'm clearly not seeing enough bands live.
They'll be back in like 5 to 10 years. They'll have one more run, and
yeah,
and
they'll end spectacularly badly as the first and second time, I'm sure.
That's what they do best. Nigel, yourself, any concerts that you can talk about?
Whoa, no, my concert days ended quite a while ago. I do tend to go to quite a few festivals though, which I kind of find a bit more liberating than queuing up for a sweaty concert. So, but bands, no. I mean, I'm far more interested in bands that haven't yet been discovered. And I'm very into, my wife hates it, but I'm very into Americana. So I'll go to a festival and then I'll go to the smallest tent that has the Americana and listen to unknown things. I don't know whether that helps, but my wife always says, "Oh, do you have to listen to that cowboy music?"
And the answer is yes, I do.
Yeah, yes, yeah, because I always wanted to be a cowboy.